Now, we're joined now from Washington by Ms. Ginger Chapman, a lawyer and political analyst. Thank you for being with us, Ms. Chapman. How dangerous is it for democracy when a serving prime minister seeks a pardon before the conclusion of his trial?
Well, first, thank you for having me today, Ms. Mona. It's a pleasure to be with you and your viewers. And there are several problems with this, both legal and appearance-wise. Of course, we know this all started back in October when President Trump gave his speech before the Knesset. It was an unusual speech, and he told Israeli President Herzog he should pardon Netanyahu. This goes back to last July when President Trump acknowledged in a speech that Israel's reputation on the world stage was suffering, their public relations did not look good, and their international reputation was taking a hit. Now, after all of this, Prime Minister Netanyahu, being an opportunist, he asked for a pardon. And essentially, when Trump asked President Herzog to pardon Netanyahu, Herzog said, well, Netanyahu has not asked for a pardon, so I can't grant him one if he doesn't ask. Well, now that Netanyahu has asked, it appears there are three problems. As you mentioned, there are legal problems, and there are also risk problems to President Trump. And, well, basically, the legal problems are that in order to be pardoned for a crime, you have to be convicted of a crime. So Netanyahu's lawyers said in support of their argument that Netanyahu would likely be acquitted. Well, if he believes he would be acquitted because he's innocent, then he does not get a pardon. In fact, it could be illegal to grant a pardon to an innocent person. So he has opened up a can of legal worms there. Secondly, procedurally, what he wants is not a pardon. He wants the trial stopped. We see this because he's engaged in many delay tactics, claiming illness, claiming he's busy, slaughtering the people of Gaza. He cannot take the time to show up for trial. What he wants to do is ask the Attorney General to withdraw the trial proceedings. That would be the proper legal procedure. However, he's not going through proper legal channels and proper legal procedure, and the request for a pardon is improper without a conviction or a trial. And indeed, the opposition is saying if he wants a pardon, he needs to admit guilt and retire from public office. So the risks now to President Trump, of course, Trump does not want to be associated with someone whose public relations image is bad. And also here at home, Trump runs the risk of looking like he's interfering in the judicial proceedings of another country. This gives the appearance of undue American influence. It appears to undermine the rule of law and risks giving the appearance of green-lighting corruption.
The rule of law. Now, historically, pardons at this stage have been reserved for state security or exceptional circumstances. Before I go to a question here, we've been seeing Netanyahu extending wars, not abiding by the ceasefire in Lebanon nor in Gaza, and even striking Syria, opening fronts. With all the circumstances Netanyahu is opening, does a corruption trial qualify?
Yes, well, Ms. Mona, you make excellent points. As we have seen, Netanyahu and Israel is ceasefire incapable. Not a day of their ceasefire with Lebanon or Gaza has gone by where they have not engaged in airstrikes, bombings, killings, assassinations, and withholding the food aid they have promised to deliver. So as we've seen, the rule of law does not appear to apply to Israel. neither UN sanctions, International Criminal Court rulings. So it is unusual for Netanyahu to now claim the rule of law, especially as he's on trial for corruption, fraud, bribery. And once again, this risks damaging, well, not just Israel's reputation, but also the reputation of America. This is something that President Trump appears to be aware of the risks, but unable to do anything about. And indeed, we did see when President Trump interfered in Brazil with the judicial proceedings against Jair Bolsonaro. That did not help Bolsonaro at home. Indeed, now Bolsonaro is beginning the beginnings of his jail sentence after his trial. So Trump intervening may not be the help that Netanyahu hopes that it might be, but this is all against a backdrop, as you mentioned, of broken ceasefires and not adhering to the rule of law. And indeed, it appears that Israel itself is on trial along with Bibi Netanyahu. Netanyahu's entire political career rests on him avoiding trial, not being convicted, and essentially being able to carry out his ongoing wars against Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, and including Iran, which we all believe he is still planning to strike Iran. So Israel operates under crisis mode, under emergency mode. That is how they function. Netanyahu needs constant crisis to stay in office. Meanwhile, his country is collapsing. The economics are collapsing. No one is trading with them. Their ports are down. Their demographics are collapsing. Last year, 79,000 people left. Only 39,000 arrived. So they have a loss of 40,000 people. They're losing the moderates, the secularists, the brain drain, the workers. They're left with only the most radical Zionists, which makes their society more radical, which in turn makes the rest of the world less likely to support them. It makes the younger Americans turn away from them. So Netanyahu sees that he is in trouble. His request for a presidential pardon is a Hail Mary move. He thinks if he can stay out of jail, if he can survive until the elections in March, then perhaps he's home free to continue his Greater Israel project. Unfortunately, America can no longer support him financially. We can no longer support them with unlimited weapons. We are broke here in America, and the resistance to Israel's Greater Israel policies are tearing apart the Republican Party as well as the American people in general. So Trump is treading carefully. He wants to rehabilitate Netanyahu's image, but at the same time, he cannot stick his neck out too far for Netanyahu because this is angering his base at home. So once again, this is fraught with legal issues for Netanyahu procedurally, whether it is proper, and the appearance of greenlighting corruption.
Now, in his pardon, citing national unity and citing good governance, these were exactly the terms Netanyahu, or the lawyer of Netanyahu, used in his pardon. Could granting such a pardon fuel civil unrest or a legitimacy crisis among Israel's judiciary and civil society?
Yes, that is an excellent point. We know that Israeli society is already divided in many factions. We've seen the protests. Most of these protests had to do with bringing the hostages home. However, the Orthodox in Israel are protesting the war. They do not want to be sent into Gaza or into other countries as part of Israel's war of aggression and the Greater Israel Project. And at the same time, Likud and Netanyahu's opponents, once again, they want him to admit guilt and retire from public office. So the charges of corruption, the fractures between the hardliners and the Knesset, the Orthodox, and the ordinary Israeli people are part of what's collapsing Netanyahu's government and endangering really Israel's survival in the long term. Many people are wondering how long they can limp along like this. And the main danger right now is as Netanyahu gets more desperate, he will become more aggressive against the Palestinian people to show results in Gaza. He will become more desperate against Lebanon and Syria. And the biggest fear is that if things in Israel become dire enough and Netanyahu feels endangered, he will strike Iran and begin another war as a major distraction and reset. If this happens, it is unclear whether the United States will be able to protect them the way we were able to previously. So this corruption trial and Netanyahu's efforts right now are part of a much broader struggle,
Right.
Not just Netanyahu, but Israel's struggle itself against the sentiments of the international world.
Right. But if the Israeli president refuses the pardon, would that trigger a constitutional confrontation or accelerate any early election? And would that do a kind of fragmentation of the whole society? What do you think? And briefly, because I'm running out of time, Ms. Chapman.
Yes. Well, Netanyahu's trial does have the potential to tear apart Israeli society, whether he is convicted or not, whether he is pardoned or not. If this trial proceeds, it will bring a lot out in the open that will anger the Israeli people. If he is pardoned, that will anger the opposition, and it will also anger Americans who believe that Trump is giving too much of a green light to Netanyahu. It does not matter what happens at this point. They are in trouble, and the road ahead is rocky for Israel and for Netanyahu.
Right. Ms. Ginger Chapman, we thank you so much for navigating with us through the legal minefield that democracy must never step away from.